I thought that women in Brazil were supposed to be more submissive and compliant. Coming to paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, Godbreaker. The man who rules the world takes on the Asgardian god of thunder in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Pre-order your copy of John Haynes, Godbreaker at online booksellers today. A Brazilian activist named Stephanie Ribeiro is throwing a wrench in the narrative of the Passport Bros. Now, Stephanie Ribeiro has started a campaign against the Passport Bros and has gone out here and singled out one of the Passport Bros, Austin Holloman, by going out here and letting people on social media and some people in even law enforcement know about what the Passport Bros are doing in Brazil. Now, according to the Passport Bros, there aren't supposed to be any sort of feminists in Brazil, but here we have your Stephanie Ribeiro, and she's looking like one of those feminists that the Passport Bros was looking to run away from in America, because they say that these kinds of women are the ones that make it very difficult for them to have relationships in America. So they have to go out here and get a passport, pay for a plane ticket, and fly all the way over to Brazil in order to find a more allegedly submissive and more compliant woman who they will be easily able to have a relationship with. Now, your Stephanie Ribeiro has a grievance with the Passport Bros because she believes that many of the Passport Bros are not looking to have a relationship with a woman that ends in marriage. No, she believes that many of the Passport Bros are looking to go out here and use Brazilian women as sex objects and use them for their sexual pleasure before flying back to America to go back to their lives. And this allegation of Passport Bros trying to create a double life for themselves is one of the reasons why Stephanie Ribeiro is participating in her activism, looking to let women know about these Passport Bros, black males who want to go to Brazil, looking for women to get involved with, because she believes that many of these Passport Bros are not looking for a woman to get married to, but they're looking to exploit Brazilian women through sex trafficking or going out here and basically using women just to go out here and have their sexual pleasures before flying back to America to go back to their lives. Now, I can understand where your Stephanie Ribeiro has an issue as related to the Passport Bros, because the Passport Bros, if they are doing what she is alleging, they are basically no different than Pookie and Ray Ray here in America, because here in America, your Pookie and your Ray Ray basically go out here and use black American women for their sexual pleasure, and many of these males just live off of black American women, and your Stephanie Ribeiro doesn't want to see Brazilian black women used in a similar fashion by black American men. Now, I can understand where she's making her argument, because many of the black males who are Passport Bros, even though some of these males have college educations and jobs, come from the same foundation of dysfunction as Pookie and Ray Ray, because their mother was a dysfunctional woman who was raised in American feminist ideology, and as she was raised in American feminist ideology, she was out here so-called being sexually liberated, and that's what led to her becoming disrespectful, because as she was out here with your Pookies and your Ray Rays, she was out here participating in sexual promiscuity and basically being used and abused by the worst men in her society. And as those boys in that society grew up, they learned this dysfunction. And it looks like to me that what your Stephanie Ribeiro wants to do is prevent that type of dysfunction becoming the social norm in Brazil. Because according to many of the black males who travel to Brazil, they say they're going there to find a so-called better woman. However, when they go over to those countries looking for that so-called better woman, they don't really see how they have dysfunction that they have learned from their mothers. And it's that dysfunction that they learn from their mothers that has some of these men who call themselves passport bros going overseas looking for a so-called better foreign woman. However, they just participate in the same dysfunctional behavior. And according to some reports, some of these guys just go out here and they are using Brazilian women for easy sex. And then others are going out here after they use these women for easy sex. They go out and abandon these Brazilian women, leaving them to be taken care of by the government in some cases if they have children by these men. Because yes, some of these passport bros go out here and they have children by these Brazilian women, and like Pookie and Ray Ray, they don't take care of those children. And this is something that many in the country are having an issue with as related to the passport bros. So we have people in the community having issues with the passport bros. But what's really interesting to me is how your Stephanie Ribeiro is speaking out against the passport bros, because it basically shatters the whole narrative that the passport bros have presented as related to the women of Brazil being so-called more submissive and compliant. And that whole narrative was the reason why many black males would go out here and jump on planes and fly overseas, spending thousands of dollars. They believed that they would have an opportunity at a more submissive and more compliant woman. However, that narrative was shattered even before 2019 when I made the first passport video, because many of these narratives were being shattered by the men going their own way. And I remember Sandman talking about many of these countries and how the men there were saying that the women there were being indoctrinated into feminism by the internet, because the internet is what many of these women have in their homes. And because these women have the internet inside of their homes, they are learning more and more about America. And as they're learning more and more about American ideologies like feminism, they are learning to adopt these as a way of life. And this is something the passport bros did not want to hear from me or many of the men going their own way in these other countries who had already been dealing with this issue. But they didn't want to believe this because they wanted to hold on to the pipe dream that the women in Brazil were so-called still more submissive and compliant and would be easier to have relationships with, not understanding that many of those women had already been on the internet listening to many feminists and coming up with their own ideas for activism. Moreover, many of these women also were online listening to many of these black males sitting there talking about how they wanted to go get their passports and go have relationships with them overseas. And as those women were sitting there listening to them in their homes in those foreign countries, some of these female predators were making up plans, hoping to take advantage of many of these men who had bought into this narrative. Now, some of these female predators were out here looking to set these men up for robberies. Some of these women were looking to set these guys up in order to get some easy money out of them in exchange for sexual favors. However, there was a contingent of women like Stephanie Ribeiro who were looking at the moral position of the women in that country, and they were looking at that moral position because they saw the direction of their country looking to go in a bad direction if these males were allowed to come into the country at a large frequency. So a lot of those women were looking at these males who were looking to say, oh, they're the better choice, but they weren't looking to get with these black males because they saw many of these males as dysfunctional, and they didn't want them bringing their dysfunction to their country and lowering the quality of life in their country. That's something many of these black males really don't want to ever hear, because like the swirlers and the divestors, they think that they are supposed to be the top choice of these other people in these countries, not understanding, like the brother of logic and common sense has said in many of his videos regarding passport bros, that these people in these countries are very territorial, and they're going to want to go and look to protect their territory from those who they think would do harm to their territory. And what's really interesting here is that usually it's the men who go out here and actively look to protect their territory from outsiders like passport bros. But here we have, in this case, a woman looking to defend the territory of Brazil from the passport bros, and that is very telling because it shows how these women are more on point as related to protecting territory than these passport bros think that they are. And again, if the women are standing up against the passport bros, that should be a red flag to them, that they are not really interested in having a lot of these black males come to their country, and that they don't really are not really into black males like they believe they are. Because another part of that narrative is to say, oh, these women love us. When we look at Stephanie Ribeiro's actions, and they clearly show that the Brazilian women just ain't into black men like they believe that they are. And they're so not into black men that they're looking to send a message to black men by saying things like, I am not a prostitute, and do not group us in the category of the prostitutes that you supposedly go out here and pursue. That is the statement that Stephanie Ribeiro and many of the women who support her are going out here and saying to the passport bro. And the statement that they're saying to the passport bro is that you are not going to go out here and put me in the category of a harlot, and you're not going to put me in the category of a sexually promiscuous woman, and you're not going to say that I am easy. Again, going back to the old African proverb which says a race can rise no higher than the moral position of its women. And it's looking to me like your Stephanie Ribeiro, who they say is a feminist, is basically holding on to a moral position and saying that she doesn't want to be grouped in that category of so-called easy women, because being said to be an easy woman, that says that you have a low moral position, and to be said that you can be easily used for sex, that says that you are a weak woman. And I guess these women do not want to be put in that category by the passport bros, who are out here. The only reason that they're there is because they say that the women in their communities are so bad that they have to leave the country and pursue relationships with women from other countries. But those women in those other countries, they're not really interested in relationships with these men from these other countries, because they know that these men aren't interested in protecting and preserving their territory. And since they're not interested in protecting and preserving their territory, they're saying that they don't want anything to do really with these black males. And that's why they targeted one of those males who was supposed to be the leader of the passport bros, and basically ran him out of the country. Again, that's a powerful statement, because if a woman can run you out of a country, it says that the men there in America, in the black community, are weak, because it's those black males who were out here who said that they had needed to leave the country because of a black woman who was just out of control. And here we have another woman basically running him out of another country. And again, this shows the weakness of the black male, who says he needs to travel to over other countries. And moreover, if he's a part of the Save Yourself black man group, he's the one saying that we need to go out here and go to other countries and build. But most of those men and women in those other countries are saying that the black man is a weak link. Because again, if a woman can run you out of a territory and a nation, it says that the man is weak, and then no other man needs to respect you. Because if you cannot stand up and protect your own territory from outsiders and invaders, like black men do not do in their own so-called communitas, many of these black males, they can't keep the foreign store owners out. They can't even set boundaries in their own territory. But these men think that they're going to get love and respect from other people. But you're not going to get love and respect from other people unless you establish boundaries for your own territory, unless you establish boundaries for your own people, unless you establish standards for your own community. Because when you go out here and establish boundaries for your territory, establish standards for your own community, and are a leader, that's when people respect you, and that's when women want to submit to you, because they see you as somebody looking to lead and not somebody going out here looking to follow. Because when many of these women in these foreign lands, like a Stephanie Ribeiro, look at a black man, they don't see strength. No, they see weakness, even though he has a bunch of money when he's out there participating in his travels. They don't see a man that they respect, because he is not going out here and set lines for his territory. He has not set boundaries for his community. He has not established standards for his community. And he's going to those people complaining, oh, the black women are out of control. Well, how are you showing me that you're going to be a leader? Critical question many want to ask the Passport Bros. How are you showing all of those foreign women that you say are better than you, that you are worthy of leading them? Because if you sit there and are telling me that the black woman is out of control, then how are you going to set control and order for a territory when in that foreign land? And how are you going to set territory lines when you bring that woman back to America? These are the things that the Passport Bro has not thought about, because he's so in his feelings of anger at his mother, the black American woman, and he's so in his feelings about the girls in his teenage years that rejected him, that he's not really thinking about how he's looking optically to all of these women in the world. Because they don't care if you travel to the country, if you don't have your intangibles of manhood as related to being a leader and an authority figure in your own community, then they don't see you as anybody that they need to respect. And those who get involved with you basically see you as a tool they can use to go out here and advance themselves at your expense. And this is why somebody like a Stephanie Ribeiro can go out here and actively push a black man out in her country, because they see that that black man is just as weak as he was in America, and he's even weaker because he's not a citizen in that country. So she can go out here and use the same type of enforcers that the black woman in America uses, which is their police, to go after that black man and have even more impactful results, because this man is seen as a threat. And moreover, in many of these countries like Brazil, they have a lot of anti-black racism, which is what the Passport Bros don't understand. So going out here and going after a heterosexual black man, this is something that they will do with extreme relish, because they want to go out here and break and humiliate a black man. And sadly, many of these black males, they don't really understand the big picture as related to the subtle politics transpiring around them. And because they don't understand the subtle politics transpiring around them, they're sitting there in their feelings talking about, oh, how these foreign women are more submissive and compliant. And we see that that was never true, and it hasn't been true for years, because again, you had many men going their own way, talking in many of their videos, explaining this to men. But the Passport Bros didn't want to hear this. No, they wanted to go out here and say, oh, this is the way these women are. They're better than these other women, not understanding women are women wherever you go. And if you are not in a place where you can have standards and values as a man, no woman is going to respect you because you don't respect yourself. And because when you make a statement like, oh, these black women ran me away, it's basically sending a message to those women that you are a weak man. And when you send a message to those women that you are a weak man, what you are telling those women is that you are nobody they need to respect, because if you can't even lead yourself, then how do you expect to lead her in a relationship? And you traveling to her really shows her that you're not bringing anything to the table, because you're running away from a black woman, and running away from a woman in and of itself is weakness, because no woman respects a man who runs away from other women. Now, they understand if you have to retreat from a man, but when you run away from women, you are sending a message to other women in other nations that you are no one they need to respect or regard, because you never want to take your respect for yourself. And this is what flies over the head of many of your black males who are sitting there with the passport narrative. They don't understand that when you sit there and make these talking points, you are coming from a position of weakness. And when you come from a position of weakness, you are letting everybody know that you can be run out. And that's exactly what happened here. And what's even more embarrassing, that it's a woman who ran the passport bros out of Brazil. It wasn't a group of men, because usually it's the men who go out here and run a group of males out of their territory. But if it was a woman can do this, it really makes it look to the world like these males are pathetic. And again, very embarrassing for these black males, because this basically shatters their entire narrative, and it proves one that they said, oh, there's no feminism in these foreign countries. We see that there's feminism. Two, we see that these women are not as submissive as they say they are. Three, we see that they're not as much as compliant as they said they are. And we see, four, they're not as easy as you said that they were, and that your foreign woman is just like your American woman. Again, many men knew this because they understood that women have been on the internet for the last 20 years, and as they've been on the internet for the last 20 years, they've been learning about the world, and they've been learning more and more about individuals like the passport bros, who continue to brag about their whole narrative. And now that these women across the globe are aware of their narrative, they're learning that there's not going to be many places to travel to get away from the women that they said that they wanted to get away from, because the foreign woman will have the same feminist mindset that the black American woman has. And that whole mindset is because you had a generation of weak men, and they don't really see that the problem isn't the woman. The problem really, in many cases, with the passport bros, is that they don't want to take a leadership role like a man. Now, if you want to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to pick up some of my men's issues books, you can find them on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can find them at other online booksellers like Smashwords, the iBook Store, and Google Play. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback, John Haynes at Death's Door. The man who rules the world takes on the Greek god of death in this action-packed John Haynes series adventure. Pick up your copy of John Haynes at Death's Door at Amazon.com and other online booksellers everywhere.